Ladies and gentlemen, welcome back to the Shadow and Sun Show, and welcome back to another Why We Play the Game. I told you guys last week I was going to finalize my thoughts on traps, why I like them, why I hate them, and why there's just too damn many of them. Anybody out there who's played with me as a player, when I've been a player, you know that I tend to run two things: magic users and thieves, rogues, scoundrels, that type of character. Part of it is because don't get me wrong, I do like the notion of disarming traps, but I like the idea of being able to disarm them without just rolling a die, because for the most part, I tend to run games or play in games like Dungeons and Dragons, or games where the thief has a percentage chance of disarming the trap, and it gets better as they go up in level. Unfortunately, the chances to do so at the lower levels is absolutely abysmal, and later on down the road, when the percentages get higher, the game's probably already over and been shut down, so you never really get to bask in that, oh, I've got a 98% chance to find the trap, but doesn't matter if you're not playing the character anymore, or if you never get to that point. But when it does come to traps, I've got to ask, some serious questions. First is, why so damn many? In my opinion, every door should not be trapped. Every door doesn't need to be checked for traps. It's ridiculous to think that every door would be trapped, but yet, as per the last video, the player thieves in the party, they're going to check every single door, every single hallway, etc. When the notion that it could be possible to do that is insane. The cost to build them, to keep them working, and why you would do that. Now, in traditional like tombs, burial places, I get it. Those things would be feasibly trapped because the creators, building their last resting place, and they want their stuff to be left alone. So it kind of makes sense. But the wizard living underground or in a tower, having everything trapped, would waste half of his day trying to, deactivate his own traps, going from place to place, unless you have some magical doohickey that just lets that guy walk free through his trapped domicile, and his poor minions, what a routine they'd have to go through. I find that vaults, treasure chests, and magic items themselves, or items themselves, are far better to be the location of traps than random doors and hallways and random things that if you touch this thing, it just so happens to be trapped, or there's a freaking spider under it, or a scorpion in your boot. That kind of just gotcha stuff just leads to the previous video's paranoid behavior, which just drags the game down, shortens the overall fun for everybody else except the rogue, which of course they do want their time in the sun. But if the entire party's survival is reliant on one or more thieves being out in front doing all these things constantly, it just eats up time in the game. Now, there are ways to telegraph to the players that maybe you might want to start looking without just handing it over to them. The classic Indiana Jones finding the dead body with a bunch of darts in him. Okay, well, maybe now we should start looking for traps. Before then, maybe not. And once you start finding one or more, then you have a reason to be on your toes. But walking through, somebody's basement, looking and checking every door for a trap, etc. It's bad enough that they got to do the picking of locks, which also is another time consumer. When why would they be locked? Why would every single door be locked? Do they all have the same key? Because if they do, then once you figure out one lock, it's not a matter of if, it's a matter of when. And I know other games kind of simplify that, but let's go back to traps. The same thing, how do you how does the owner, or how did the owners get through their home with 37 different traps in it? How did they remember that? What kind of maniac would do that? Were there any children in the house? Did they ever worry about them getting killed? Were they losing servants left and right because they made a mistake off with his head because he went down the wrong hallway on accident? It's not realistic. And the upkeep, who keeps these things maintained? I know someone told me that, like in the DMG or somewhere, that you roll a die to see if the trap is even actually functional. Well, doesn't matter if it's functional or not if the players are committed to checking everything for traps. And then they find one, but it's not working. That just reinforces the idea that, hey, the place is full of traps. We got to keep checking every door, every window, every doghouse, every farmhouse to see if there is in fact a trap. And even the traps that are broken, that could technically mean you can never get through the door without a sledgehammer or a construction crew, which can be the way you want to go. They're making noise to get through the door, so here come the wandering monsters. I'll have a video on wandering monsters real soon. My solution over the years has been to do things differently, because ultimately the DM is trying to whittle down your hit points and your other resources to weaken you so that the challenge is harder. But if none of those things were there and it was just a straight fight with the boss, you walk in the dungeon, there's the boss waiting, and you duke it out, you could just make the boss really powerful, because he's like Magneto or Doctor Doom, has to face off against the whole team. Shredder's got to fight all 4 of the turtles at once. Well, then you get to make your bad guy pretty bad and pretty tough enough to potentially defeat all of the player characters single-handedly or with his minions. But instead you throw the bad guy at the last room, and along the way they've got to beat all these traps and minions and tricks and things like that to finally get there. Instead, I suggest things like environmental hazards. One of my favorites was the White Plume Mountains lava pit, where you had to jump from chain. They had these chains suspended from the ceiling with these wooden platforms, and you had to jump from one to the other. But the chain is centered in the center of a round disc, and if you don't land on it just right, the disc is going to tip over and drop you into the lava. And once you're on there, you got to balance yourself to then kind of do the Mario jump from platform to platform, which is insane as that sounds, was a lot of fun. Unfortunately, it was insanely deadly, and the last time we went through it, we lost half the party because there was just, it was just the difficulty rolls. But I like those things, like Luke having to swing across the chasm with the grappling hook. Roles and challenges that make you do something physical that isn't combat and isn't like picking a lock or looking for traps. Running, jumping, hiding, things like that are far more realistic and likely to actually be a solution or something that happens versus the constant looking out for the pit traps, which those don't even get me started on how difficult those would be to build. The only thing that's more difficult would be the stone block that just drops. What's holding up the stone block? Because it's got to be pretty strong to hold up a 10-ton block. What is it, a couple of pins, and you just pull them out, like the shelves you have that have those little tiny pins that hold up your canned foods, and somehow miraculously they don't collapse when you put too many cans on them. I'm sorry. I'm dealing with shelves, and it reminded me of that. But other things, in the old days there were a lot of illusions. Arduin used a lot of illusionary walls, which are things that you can trick them. Teleport traps, and things like that, that keep the players busy doing and thinking and whatnot. but not constantly, fiddling with the doors and the locks and the things like that. Another thing I like is to make a better class of guardians for your dungeons, whether they be robots or golems or armed squads of roving, guardsmen. That makes for a great. I mean, if you're just trying to whittle down your players and make it more of a challenge, half a dozen, hobgoblins in banded armor with halberds can mess up just about any party under fourth, fifth level. It may not kill them, but it's definitely going to whittle away those hit points and potentially bring on more hobgoblins and more encounters, more wandering monsters, that sort of thing. Then you've got your passive monsters, your molds, your slimes, your fungi, your ropers, things that they just happen to be there because of the experiment or the underground weirdness or the magic, or they just happen to live here. I love that part of B1 where you walk into the underground mushroom forest and there's the shriekers there. All they do is alert, other creatures that, hey, something's walking around here. If you're hungry, dinner is served. They don't hurt you. You could run the other way, but of course the party never does that. Running away is something I probably should do a video on as well, writing that down. And finally, if you are going to do your traps and you're going to put them in there, you've got to have an off switch, because what the thief does to disarm a trap isn't always a permanent thing unless you let him find the off switch. Anybody who puts a trap anywhere, there's a simple way to disarm it and maybe rearm it as well. I mean, if you're going to go into the crazy high-tech allowances of these kinds of traps, then why not have an on and off switch somewhere hidden in the hallway, so that the wizard, when he's walking down, is like, oh, turn off the traps, okay, I'm good. Get to the end of the hallway, turn the traps back on, something like that anybody can find and figure out in the case you don't actually have any thieves or rogues in the party. What do? You build this great dungeon, and you let's say you throw a half a dozen traps in it, but the first trap kills your one and only thief. Do you go forward? Do you go back to town and get another thief? Chances are the party's going to go forward, but then there's suddenly, it's a guarantee that they're going to die because they have no ability to disarm or get around the traps because they don't even know what to look for. But if you make on-off switches for the traps, then anybody can, handle it, take care of it, and it gives clever players, something to do, looking for those things that are out of place. The candlestick that opens up the secret door, well, maybe there's a candlestick that you pull down and it arms or resets the traps or disarms the traps. Just things I've been thinking about lately because of the propensity I've seen in some old school modules for traps to be everywhere and for them not making a whole lot of sense. But that's what I've got for you. If you got anything you'd like to add, feel free to hit me up in the comment section or over on Discord. I'm always there, or at least every couple hours I check. But we'll keep this conversation going as long as it's fun and interesting. But those are my thoughts and opinions. I'll see you guys tonight or tomorrow. Oh, of course, I'll see you in 45 minutes because we're going to do a live show. I almost forgot about that. But anyways, have a great week. It's starting to look beautiful outside. And I will see you guys in the funny papers.